In the UK, what does the word cunt mean to you? Who do you use it for? What do you use that as a descriptive for? Alright, so, like I said, pieces of evidence. This is what this guy typed up, as if what Natalie claimed was magically true. She was some magic unicorn and fucking everything was fine and dandy, and I was just an evil person because I have a penis. Okay, sure, whatever. Meanwhile, we gotta take a look at some scientific studies now. We gotta get some woke people to wake the fuck up. Alright, dear fat people, this is coming from somebody who was very, very, very fat as a child. I was fat. I weighed more than I do now, and I was a lot fucking shorter. Let me tell you something about being fat. Fat literally decreases your brain function. The fatter you are, the less functional your brain is. It's very similar to the drunker you are, the less cognitive you are. It does the same thing. It's called oxygen deprivation. I've been reading the scientific studies on it a bit. Holy shit. I gotta tell you, those of you who don't want to be fat shamed, I'm fine with that. My question is, if you don't want to be fat shamed, why is it when you get an attitude and you decide to pick on a girl who's less than half your size, why do you gotta say stuff like, I'll break you in half, you scrawny little bitch? Is that not body shaming too? I didn't grow up in the hoity-toity rich neighborhood where everybody's nice to each other. Of course, everybody's gotta be nice to each other in one of them neighborhoods. You got a bunch of rich people think they can do whatever the fuck they want. They don't want to get caught. They don't want people to dislike them. Shit, in a trailer park, get it out in the fucking open. Everybody knows anyway. And if they don't, they think they do, and they're still gonna pass judgment on you. Get it out of the fucking way, get it over with. This is one of the things that we teach men. This is one of the great things about being a man. If you let two men fight it out, they'll establish a pecking order, and they'll knock their shit off. When I was growing up, there was a really, really large kid. His name was Tim, and he was huge. He wasn't exactly the brightest feller, and me and him got into a lot of fights, and he won every single one of them. Almost every single one of them. Or would have, were it not for the fact that the staff kept on breaking it up. And Tim was a jerk. He was also black. Do I go pointing out that he was black every time I bring up this story? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. He was only half black and half Native American. And I gotta tell you, when I was fat, I couldn't tell the difference. Because when I was fat, it was from medications that I took as a kid for problems that don't hurt anybody. Did you know that? If you have Tourette syndrome, which doesn't hurt anybody, they give you drugs. Drugs that hurt you. So doctors are literally hurting you lessening your lifespan because you're different. It's not something that hurts anybody. When I get winky blinky at you, it's not because I'm hitting on you. It's not because I'm gay. It's not because I'm flirting with your girlfriend. It's nothing like that at all. But you guys don't want to be educated in that. I have to try to stay around people who know me and are aware of my quirks because I'm not allowed to stand up for myself, especially if I'm alone. And if the people around me are not aware of what that really means, they're not familiar with me, how well is that going to work out? Why did my mom never get familiar with me? Why did my dad never get familiar with me? Well, they're both selfish addicts. It doesn't matter what you're addicted to. Shit, I'm addicted to coffee. I know it affects my cognitive reasoning skills. I know that it tastes gross. I also know I'm addicted to sugar, so I put a lot of sugar in it. And I really like milk and cream, so I put milk and cream in it. Oh. Nope, it's just lint. Good. For a second there, I thought I pulled a lice out of my hair. So let's cut out the expensive words that none of us are going to remember in the morning, and let's talk about being fat. For me, I didn't have the same experiences as a lot of fat people. I was fat because of medications, and the medications made me stupid, so I couldn't tell if I was more intelligent or less intelligent as a fat person because I was definitely a less intelligent person because of the medications. When a male is trying to turn in his predators, here's the things that you do. No, it doesn't matter what the things that you do are. The thing is that you're body shaming and pretending that it's a man trait. Only men do this. If he doesn't do what you want, what do? What are you allowed to do? You're allowed to play on the fact that you are a female. When those of you who want to say don't fat shame you, you know what? If I don't want to date you, that's not fat shaming you. When you've assumed that every guy out there doesn't want you because you're fat, you're missing out on a lot of guys who are lonely. There are a lot of guys out there that would just be glad to have someone. Then you have expectations of us. We can't have a sensitive side. Now, is this addressing all fat people? Obviously, it's not addressing even fat people. For the most part, it's addressing people. We've got fat women who blame men. We've got fat women who blame white people. We've got fat men that do the same thing. Man, I only binge eat because my wife done me wrong. Found out my daughter wasn't mine when she turned 18. She left me for whoever they end up leaving you for. Pissed off because you gave up 18 years of your life to raise a kid that's not yours. And now you're morbidly obese. Your daughter still comes to see you. You still call her your daughter, but you're still pissed off at your ex that you didn't find out until your daughter was 18 that she wasn't your daughter. Why is your daughter still coming to see you, Papa? Why does she call you Papa instead of Dad? All sorts of questions there that I could be asking in that situation that really, they're not relevant. And that's the problem with a lot of y'all. You've got assumptions that aren't relevant. Look at the facts. When you want me to pick you over someone who looks healthy to me, well, who's to say what's healthy? Maybe large women or large men, maybe they'll survive the apocalypse or the zombie apocalypse or whatever it is that you guys got fantasy in your head about end of the world scenarios. Y'all, it's medications. Medications that we're trying to fix real world problems with. You know what? Your leg hurts and you really need to take a couple weeks off. But you don't get to because you're expected to be to work. They can't let you go for 2 weeks and then just let you back on. Oh, I hate being itchy. Trying to talk to my Aunt Mary. She's a very morbidly obese woman. It's about like talking to a 5-year-old who can't pay attention. Like, no matter how much you try to get her to care as a family member would, she just wants to talk about stuff that she wants to change the subject. If she changes the subject enough, then I'm a bad person, right? Well, my Aunt Mary doesn't necessarily change the subject the way that she does because she's a mean person. She is morbidly obese after all. And it's not just the morbidly obese that's the problem with her health. It's also her unwillingness to follow doctors' instructions, unwillingness to try. That's why when she went to have her stomach stapling, and this is supposed to make it so that she's not going to be large, she's going to lose her weight, she's going to be the weight of an average woman, they're telling her. But she's got to exercise or she's not going to be able to survive the stomach stapling. Luckily, she did, I guess. But also, my Aunt Mary is one of those women who has a lot of animosity towards men. Because when she was growing up, she was very large, extremely large, and she was not well liked. She wasn't popular. And she found that she could do something about that by getting into positions of power where she could tell other people what to do. I'd say I understand that, but I really don't. What I do is voluntary, and if people want my help, I do my best to help them how they ask. When I ask people to speak up, all of you know how to do that. When I ask you to listen, all of you know how to do that. There may be some of you who don't know how to read, or some of you who are deaf. For those of you who are deaf, I feel the worst for you reading this, because I know that the closed captioning for my videos does not capture what I say properly. Some of that has to do with the fact that I have no teeth, so I don't enunciate properly. I also have a very nasal sound to my voice. There's a lot that goes into it when people decide whether or not you're worth listening to. When you want to say that fat is what makes people not listen to you, no, that's not it. That has more to do with dating than anything else. When you're talking about superficial people, yeah, but we're not all superficial people. Now, when you want to pretend that you having a sex drive is okay and normal, but a man having a sex drive is wrong, I don't understand that. I don't understand how you keep changing the rules on us. How we have to follow your rules and your social constructs, but we get to see also, like I keep telling you, women run shit. Bill Clinton, there's no way in hell he was going to do something that his wife was going to be pissed off about. She was intelligent, he was not. But it's not always like that. Not everybody that I know who is a male is highly intelligent. Not every person I know who's female is highly intelligent. Some males I know, like, well, actually, we'll talk about one of the most intelligent women I ever met. Her name is Bridget Stegeman. According to Chris, her IQ is in the low 180s. Low to mid 180s. Bridget Stegeman was humble and down to earth. She also played piano. When I think back on Bridget Stegeman, I can't think of a single time she was ever mean to me. Just a genuinely kind person, but she was also allowed to be. Now, when it comes to Bridget Stegeman, she wasn't fat. When it comes to Kim Jefferson, she wasn't fat. When it came to Alyssa Derry, she wasn't fat either. They were the three most sought-after girls in the class that I was in there, because I was held back. Well, not really held back. My Washington State credits from Lincoln High School in Washington State, obviously, Tacoma. The credits didn't transfer over, a lot of them. Like Washington State history doesn't transfer over to Nebraska. So you gotta redo the Nebraska history one. One of the things that I'm trying to point out here is that I don't shame you into dating me. When I say no, you should accept no for an answer, and we have taught so many people not to respect a man's boundaries, that a man's boundaries don't exist. None of my friends stopped to understand how many people were being cruel to me. None of them tried. None of them cared. That's the thing about being different, is that the only society that really accepts you are the druggies, and they don't really accept you. There's no loyalty there. You want to shame men for having a sex drive. You want to shame men for finding someone attractive who's not you. You want to shame men because they won't get rid of their wives and be with you. We get to see all the time in our own personal lives how many women will meddle and dwell because they want something. The difference there isn't that women are so much different from men. I see men do this stuff too. It's that people will chastise a man for doing that shit a lot easier than they'll ever attempt to chastise a woman. We tell ourselves things like, well, a woman should be allowed to do that. As hard as their lives are, we should make it easier for them. We should allow them. No, we shouldn't. Wrong is wrong regardless of gender. I took enough abuse while my friends and family showed how sexist they were, how biased they were. See, that's one of the things about being pretty and popular. Those of you who are large people, you do have cognitive issues because of the largeness of yourself. The same as alcoholics have issues due to their need for alcohol, which does the same thing. It deprives your brain of oxygen. And it makes you not think as straight. But those aren't the only things that have that effect. I keep hoping that y'all will stop and see men as human beings instead of property. A man exists to do what you want when you want him to do it. Your daddy told you you're a princess and you expect a castle. I don't understand how so many people think this is okay. This really is how it is, though. A man is expected to do it by himself. And women believe that telling a man what to do is the only help that they should ever have to provide when it comes to this kind of support. A man is expected to drop everything he is doing to help a woman. We're told that no means no, and then we're told that literally anything that we do should be interpreted as we're rapists. So how about get the fuck away from men? If you hate men that much, you're not really afraid of them. You just need an excuse to hate because you didn't get what you wanted. You didn't get your pony. You didn't get your Prince Charming. So the fuck what? The thing is, trust is important. And if we have an argument and you want to body shame me, and I body shame you back, if you want to call me a scrawny little shit who isn't worth a fuck, yeah, I think that it is equal to be a fucking dickhead to you and body shame you back. Don't body shame me. Don't pretend that I'm a bad person, that I must have to rape people because I'm not good looking. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I don't care to be good looking. I don't care to be fucking desirable as a sexual object. Now, I don't try to shame models into touching my penis. You can ask Jacqueline Martindale how many times I have ever tried to pressure her to date me, go out with me, or even kiss me. I've never asked her for such a thing, any of them. When you want to talk about how superficial men are, you know what? The one Martindale I was attracted to was Jessica, because she was smart and she was kind. But also, she wasn't pretty like her sisters. She didn't put makeup on like her sisters did. They still fought over clothes. I don't understand all of that, but okay. They're all three very different shapes and sizes. Jessica was the only blonde, and of course that's weird because I'm not really attracted to blondes. And there is a reason for that. It doesn't have anything to do with blonde jokes. It has to do with superficiality. Most of the blondes I know aren't real blondes. They're people that are trying to fit an image. We dress for success. We dress to try to attract similar minded people. If we're dressing to look sexy, we want to attract somebody else who's, well, dressing to look sexy. When we go to a mingling place looking for sex, we know which mingling places are for looking for sex. When we go to mingling places, we're just going to hang out and relax and whatnot. We go to an appropriate place for that and we dress appropriately for it. I mean, if you're going to your local coffee shop to hang out with your friends, you know, it might be 5 or 6 of you hanging out, talking about your day. Maybe you're, sitting down and making plans for having a summer vacation together in Switzerland or some crazy shit like that for those of you got money. Maybe it's just that y'all just want to hang out with your friends without hearing a whole bunch of nagging from your neighbors that are always screaming at each other. Who knows? But when you go to the coffee shop, that's more of a date type of environment if it's not the relaxed type of environment. It's not a situation where you're going to be going and trying to just straight up get laid. That's where you go to the bar. That's where you show extra skin, where you put on a lot of extra makeup. You know, the lighting might be weird, so of course you want to make your eyes pop. You want to make your hips pop. You want to make them stand out. With guys, it's not just throwing on a t-shirt and going to the bar. Guys do try to select their t-shirts, their special t-shirts for the bar, the stuff for those guys who are ripped and good looking, they try to pick a t-shirt that'll help to show the form of their body. Or you got the guys that want to attract the women who are into country music, They don't want to be listening to a bunch of Britney Spears. They just want to listen to country music, and they figure if they wear that old-ass farmer's grandpa shirt when they go to the bar, and they wear that Stetson hat, they're trying to give you an image of, well, something a little different. Then you got the guys who are a little bit larger, and they got to rely on their personality. They're going to try to pick a t-shirt that shows their personality and interests. You get that skinny guy that doesn't quite fill it all out completely. He might try doing the cowboy thing too, because he sees it does work, and it also, them extra folds in the shirt kind of hide the fact that you ain't got many muscles. And of course, who doesn't look good in a cowboy hat? So, yeah, we do try to dress for success. When we go to a meeting place or a gathering place, the way that you dress does show what it is that you're wanting or looking for. When you want to say, well, it's not okay for guys to interpret what I'm thinking, well, it's not okay for you to interpret what we're thinking either. See, here's the problem with this. Studies have shown that men are more direct and women are more likely to try reading between the lines. The problem is when you've got somebody that's being direct, there's no lines to read between. Now here's where it gets complicated. Those lines that we actually do all try to read between is we gotta try to weigh our wants versus society's bias. You have to approach what it is that you're after in a way that is kind of sort of socially acceptable, or At least not completely taboo. Like, of course, you're allowed to be attracted to a bad boy. You just have to finesse it so you can pretend that he's not really a bad boy when he's with you. You guys are so sweet together and there's never a problem. Now, we also encounter the problem of, well, many of y'all want to pick somebody who's got lots of options, and when somebody's got lots of options, they can throw you away like trash. When you've got 30 friends, losing one or two of them is not a big deal. When you got a small circle of friends, losing a friend is a very big deal. When I was much younger, I had a best friend named Joseph Walthall. Now, he had a Russian nanny and all sorts of nice stuff. He lived in a nice neighborhood. We rode the same bus together because we were both in special ed. Now, I got to be when I was younger, one of my first foster homes was for a decent while when I came to Colorado. Because I was in a foster home in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. My dad was in prison and my mom was in Colorado in rehab, but they were able to finesse it so I could go to Colorado, see my mom, and have home visits and stuff like that. Well, this is the kind of stuff you pretend doesn't happen. You want to look at me and you want to say, oh, well, there's all these guys that owe me because I'm a big woman. Well, do I get to tell you that you owe me because I'm a scrawny man? You owe it to me to give me a chance because I have a tiny penis? That you should give up your almost Channing Tatum for a guy who's bald with no teeth? That's a little bit presumptuous, isn't it? The thing is, because of bias, we're all expected to contribute into one ginormous pot, right? Let's consider it a potluck dinner. Everybody's expected to put in the same amount, regardless of your earnings. And of course, you would think that everybody gets the same amount out of it, but no, that's not how it is. Some of us have to work extra hard to get what we got. And for some of us, it's easy to take away from us because we don't have a support network. When I was cut off from my support network, I was cut off from letting my friends know what was going on. The only way I could get a hold of them without talking to them in person with most of them was through Facebook, and only occasionally. They want to pretend like I'm a bad person because they don't have a whole bunch of abilities, or they only have a phone. Well, guess what? That's the things I need you to speak up about, the things that make us vulnerable. A lot of y'all don't want to admit to vulnerability, especially the men. We're taught we're not allowed to show that. We have to be manly men. The whole do it yourself thing, do it yourself. We don't live on a planet of one. I'm not going to pretend the conditions that I live in are healthy. I'm also not going to pretend that being an alcoholic is healthy. Thank goodness I'm not. I'm not going to pretend that getting strung out on meth is healthy. Thank goodness I'm not. I'm not going to pretend that being morbidly obese is healthy. Thank goodness I'm not. I've seen other people make real big mistakes, like my Aunt Mary. Yes, I'm able to tell that she has cognitive reasoning problems. But I don't have a degree. I can't say definitively that she wasn't always like that because I didn't know her when she was a kid. I didn't know her growing up. I didn't know her until I was born. And I probably don't have any memories of the first time I met my Aunt Mary. Closest I got is a memory of being real young, stuck in traffic. I was probably about 4, and I was peeing in a soda bottle, stuck in rush hour traffic in Denver with my Aunt Mary. Now, my Aunt Mary is a large woman, a very large woman. After she had her stomach stapling, though, and this is the unfortunate part, she had her stomach stapling in, I want to say 2000, 2002, 2001. After 20 years, though, my Aunt Mary's stomach stapling didn't do any difference because she ate it out. She's got a overly enlarged stomach again. It didn't make her as skinny as she wanted it to, as much as the advertisements say on the TV. What I do know is that just because my Aunt Mary's life didn't go perfect and she didn't get what she wanted, she does hold a lot of animosity. A lot of people do. We don't teach girls to get over it the way that we teach boys. Boys pretty well start off their life knowing that they're going to be disrespected for all of it. We can see when we're children the difference. It's easy for us to tell who's the man and who's the woman. We can see visual markers, same as you can. For a lot of us who have been in public schools, we know how to tell somebody who's got Down syndrome, usually by kindergarten or first grade, because we almost always had somebody with Down syndrome in our class. For a lot of us in the 80s, we got lucky. And then the 90s screwed it all up. You know what's so great about the 1980s? The first fully integrated schools and fully integrated kids. I had classmates of every color, and we all pretty well got along. I mean, there was bullies, but it wasn't ever along racial lines, ever. Now, we did have some of those punk kids that were punk kids, don't get me wrong. They knew what racism was and how to play that game. But it wasn't far off before that was commonplace again. Whereas in the 1980s, we stuck up for each other. Don't call my black friend the N-word. Don't call my white friend that C word. Or the H word. Or any other word like that. We were allowed to be friends. There was none of this racial tension where we all got to be politically incorrect while being politically correct at each other. In the 1980s, it wasn't some magic paradise. Not by any means. The 80s fucking sucked. But you know what didn't suck? The fact that we were integrated. The fact that we had kids in our class that were deaf, we had kids in our class with Down syndrome, we had kids in our class with Tourette's, we had boys in our class and girls in our class, we had black kids in our class, we had white kids in our class, we had Native American kids in our class, all through the 1980s. Then the 90s showed up, and we were trying hard. We were working together, and then I'm going to tell you where everything fucking changed for all of us. So there was a movie that came out. It was called Boys in the Hood. How many of y'all remember Boys in the Hood? Goddamn cult classic. And that fanned a whole bunch of flames of racism. And that helped to flame the rock rap wars of the early to mid 90s. Just a bunch of kids running around hating at each other because of what was on the news. The news talking about gangster rappers or talking about killing people. So now, because a gangster rapper was singing a song, and of course, that was one of the arguments too. Man, they're not singing, it's a nursery rhyme. Just stupid things, trivial things. And the number of people that were killed over that in the 90s, Jesus fuck, in Seattle, all the way down to Portland. I've been told there was some of that going on in California too. There probably was. And yeah, I've read the scientific studies that show that fat affects the brain nearly the same way as alcohol does. It's just oxygen deprivation. The problem is when you're a fat person, it's cumulative and over time, which means that you're always slightly deprived of that oxygen. Whereas an alcoholic has to be drinking in order for that oxygen to be deprived. But then there's also the fact that both of those destroy parts of your brain. The same as fear and sleep deprivation. Those are two things that I'm experiencing. You got all these fancy names for men. Oh, well, that one's not good enough. He's a simp. I can't have an alpha male. They're violent. I can't have a beta male because they're vindictive. And of course, everybody's a goddamn narcissist these days, ain't they? It's not narcissism. It's fucking self-preservation, people. We got to work harder than our parents did to have just as much. But we don't ever get just as much, do we? The youth of today have to be stressed out. It's commonplace. It's what we've been taught. It's how we've been taught to deal with things. We're not raised by our parents. We're raised by our siblings. We're raised by the other kids in class. We're sort of raised by the teachers, but there ain't enough of them to give us all one-on-one attention. There's a lot of things that affect the brain that aren't fat. Like when you get on the roids, that's going to affect you. If you're having to take stage 4 cancer medications, that's going to affect you too. For a lot of people, they didn't like that I told embarrassing stories for them. Like Brenda Dickinson, I'm sure she didn't want everybody to know about her bowel issues. But like I said before Natalie was killed, I'm not keeping any of your fucking secrets. None of them. Your secrets get people killed. You wanting me to keep them Oh no, that is not gonna happen. Natalie's life was worth more than your fucking secrets, assholes. If I'm shaming you for being fat, it's because you're shaming me for being skinny. If I'm shaming you for looking away, it's because you looked away. Don't pretend, my friend, that you are my friend if you can so easily look away. The homeless in Boulder, Colorado, for a while there was people who worked together and tried to bring hope and make the world a better place. But then I left. You like how I said that? Does that make it sound like ego and delusion? Well, here's the reality. I knew who it was that was walking around picking up all the fucking garbage. It was me. I picked it up everywhere I went. All the time, just picking up people's fucking trash. Most of it came from high school kids. So, I left Boulder and I went up to see Miss Jerry and get my teeth yanked out. And wouldn't you know it, I came back to all those places that I used to pick up trash at. All of them had no trespassing signs and garbage all over the place. Well, I'm not stopping there to pick up trash. The thing is, if I'm not attracted to you, I should be allowed to say no without being shamed as if I'm a bad person for not being attracted to you. And just because I'm not attracted to you doesn't mean that I'm some pervert, some superficial pervert. Take a look at yourself. Listen to what's coming out of your mouth. You're talking about men like they're possessions, like they owe it to you. Well, we're taught nobody owes us a damn thing. A lot of people want to say, oh, well, they owe you at least an apology. And what, you think I'm going to get that? No. I know the reality of my situation. I tried to have hope and I tried to have faith. But no matter what, people just heard what they wanted to hear. Today, everybody's on pharmaceuticals. You notice how I started this off about fat people, and I also went through and explained that it's not just fat people, and that when I was fat, I couldn't tell the difference because I was on medications, and that's the thing. Many of you are so much smarter than the medications that you're on. The fact that that's the only help they're willing to provide. Well, you could have some property with a house, but we're going to spend literally tens of thousands of dollars on medications that you don't need. But you're stuck with it. A man who's gone through hell shouldn't have to pretend everything is okay all the time. And he shouldn't be treated like trivial stuff in your life is more important than his life is. I know that as far as how desirable a man is, that I don't care. I don't fucking care how desirable I am to any of you. There's a lot of people that want to type and say real mean-hearted things to me like, oh, well, you probably couldn't get laid unless you raped somebody. You know, that's hurtful. It is hurtful. and people go out of their way to say those hurtful things to us, we're supposed to let it roll off our backs. If we say it back to you, then we're horrible monsters. Just like if you beat on us for half an hour and we push you off of us, then we're horrible monsters. We're not allowed to defend ourselves as men. We're told what we're allowed to think and what we're allowed to feel, what expressions we're allowed to feel. We're not allowed to show any. If we show any weakness, then you talk down to us like we're puppies, or you take complete advantage of the situation and you feel empowered, like you should be the one in control here. When I say you, I'm referring to every human being on the planet. All of you are taught a certain way, and nature doesn't care what you were taught. When it gets down to the art of staring, there are people who design outfits for ballerinas, for shows in Las Vegas, and even for the ice capades, where the outfits are meant to draw your eye into the person who's wearing it. Many of these designers, they try to make it so that different lines and stripes and colors are in specific places to help fill out or shape up the person who's wearing its physical form so that they look more beautiful when they do their gymnastics or aerobics or their sequential dancing. Visually, what you care about doesn't really matter to me. That doesn't mean I don't understand the impact of it in the world around me. That means that what you are interested in is just not an interest to me. I'm not interested in looks the same way you are. I'm not interested in sex the same way you are. For me, sex is a case study. It's not something I want to be involved in. I've seen too much how sex boils people's brains. Now, obviously, that is not literally, but it gums up the works. I will never have equality, okay? When you're hateful at men who are not me because they won't date you, please stop taking it out on me. Please stop projecting onto all of us that we're bad people because you can't get the person that you want. Just so you know, I'd date Channing Tatum as well. I would. As long as he was fine with me cuddling with his St. Bernards and fine with the fact that I'm not willing to have sex with him either. I'd tell him straight up what I was in it for. I'd be like, you know what? I'm here for the company. I don't have any friends. You're a boy, I'm a boy. Fuck it. Would I actually date Channing Tatum? No. I'd never get the chance or the opportunity, and I'm not interested in him. Now, I might find him interesting. That's one thing with many of you women that you don't seem to get. Just because I'm interested in what you have to say doesn't mean that I'm interested in any part of your anatomy other than your brain. I'm not sure if you noticed, but when I talk to people, I usually don't look them in the eye. I'm looking at the floor, or I'm looking at the architecture. To those of you, ladies and gentlemen, who are obese, instead of having all this stuff bombarded at me about how I owe it to you, you're big and beautiful, and all sorts of other stuff, understand that I see you as a person. Please try to see me as a person. I'm not your enemy, and you're not the only people who have cognitive issues. Not everybody who is obese is going to have cognitive issues. And people are really, really, really super skinny tend to have issues as well. So it's not just you. People who are addicted to caffeine or sugar have a similar reaction. Now, there's different parts of the brain. There's the oxygen deprivation part, but there's also the part that triggers your addiction memory. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. Hopefully, I'll be able to get some sleep. I was able to run off a few more fake friends today. Well, yesterday. So I guess I can be happy about that. 6 years of them looking the other way is just too much. Especially since I've gone through 42 years of hell.